Welcome to Resisting Beta, the men's health podcast. And now, your host, Andrew Bontz. Welcome, men, to another episode of the Resisting Beta podcast. I am Andrew Bontz, and I am here with Zane McCormack. And Zane has an interesting story, and I'm excited to introduce him to you. Before I do that, I want to share some of the questions that I had for Zane after meeting him just today. He talked a lot about burnout. So I'm kind of curious, how do you know you're in burnout phase? Because it might be one of those things that's just like you've always kind of been there, or you're there and you don't know what good is because you're just so far in the shit that you just don't know. And he had mentioned something in the conversation I'm kind of curious about is what's the power of the pause? And he talked about a formula too. Like, what's the formula for growth when you hit your rock bottom moment, when you hit that burnout phase, when the wheels are kind of falling off the car of your life and you don't necessarily need to know where you need to go from there. So let me tell you a little bit about Zane. Zane was a police officer for 16 years, and he's across the pond. He's over in England, originally from New Zealand. He's an ex-professional rugby player and coach for over a decade, and something happened in the last year where he physically collapsed, and it was kind of a slap in the face to his life, showing him that he was burnt out. And over the last year, he became the founder of the Assured Man, and he helps men who want to shift out of the state of just really surviving to thriving again, and he does one-on-one coaching through his 12-week program. So Zane, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
That's a great intro, Andrew, and thank you for having me. The Assured Man. So, it all came about, up until sort of 6 months ago. I was a police officer here in the UK, and I had my own issue with burnout. About 3 years ago now, I physically hit the wall. I had a lot of massive change in my life. 7 years ago, I separated from my now ex-wife, but the mother of my children, and found my life sort of taking a completely different path to how I thought it was going to take. So I had the stress of sort of managing that breakup. I had I was an operational police officer. I had a lot of responsibilities with a few extra roles that I had within the job. 2 young children that I'd be responsible for. So stepping off wasn't an option. Mm-hmm. And I struggled on for sort of 3 years. Sort of everything slowly sort of come down a bit of a crescendo, and then one day it just hit. I had just a chance conversation with a friend of mine. A couple of quite pertinent questions, the usual questions, sort of how are you, you okay, and the rest of it, because everyone known I had a bit of a tough old time. And then I can't even tell you what the question was, but what I did know is that half an hour before this happened, if anyone asked me how things were, I'd have said fine, okay, and actually probably meant it. I was through everything. Everything was sort of signed off with the divorce, and I was in my new home and a new relationship, and everything seemed to be okay. And then boom, literally just hit me. I had a phone call, so being the good police officer I was, I pulled over, parked up, got myself all safe, and took the call. And then half an hour later, my friend was at the car, so saying, "Are you okay?" And I don't remember any of it. It was literally like a hole had opened up and swallowed me up, and I was there. She managed to get me home and sort of get me right. And for the next week, I had to ring up work, and because I was on my way into work, I had to ring up and say, "Look, I'm sorry, I've had a bit of emergency at home, make something up." But then the next day, I had to sort of put my hand up and say, I'm in a bit of bother. And then I spent a week. I would describe myself as particularly unwell. And then it was only then, once I sort of came through all that, my proper rock bottom, that started piecing everything back together again. And that's probably where the Assured Man was born, really. I didn't know it at the time. It was just a case of sort of, with fortunately, the job managed to put me in touch with someone understood exactly what was going on, and so was able to put a bit of a name to what had happened. And on the back of that, looking at it, and one thing that really struck me with everything was that everything was, I was a walking cliche. All the signs and symptoms leading up to my event were there, and that And the ironic thing is that one of my roles within the police is that I used to coordinate all the major search and rescue operations. So whenever anybody went missing, and more often than not, they'd gone, guys sort of our age with similar sort of situations had gone missing deliberately, and we had to find them before anything, unfortunate happened. And these are all guys with my backstory. So I was, and part of what I did in order to structure the search strategies was I had to make sure I knew what was going on, so I could, because depending on why they got missing, depended on how we were going to try and find them. So looking at all the backstories, when you're dealing with guys dealing with the same stuff you were dealing with, it all sort of, just built up. And the other good thing with the job is where we are in the southwest, we've got a lot of military bases in the UK here. A lot of the Marines have a big presence in the area, so we get a lot of guys, doing their time in the service, then coming out and joining the police afterwards. So a couple of the guys I got put in touch to talk to were, ex-services, and they'd all seen active sort of service, in Iraq and Afghanistan, like a lot of your guys have done as well. So they understood sort of what was going on. So. And the one thing they really put me in touch with was this whole concept of your shitbox. And we talk about, everyone has their own shitboxes. That gets filled up. You see some of the more sanitized versions. They talk about your pails of water, and if you're not releasing the water, it'll overflow. But they were quite frank and spoke about shitboxes. And if your shitbox is, then that's how they, if your shitbox has not been emptied, they're going to explode. They're going to go everywhere. And that's exactly what happened with me. And they talk about sort of strategies for making sure that you're regularly emptying your shitbox, so that you don't have these sort of these events. And that's then being the curious sort of guy I was, I sort of really started digging into it, and and then sort of 3 years later, here I am.
So you had talked about some of the symptoms you should have seen but missed them. What were some of those as you were walking towards this episode of collapsing? And
you know what
did you miss?
The big thing with it is everything just starts slowing down. The best way to describe it would be to have your computer with hundreds of tabs open, all running, and just slowly sort of taking up your bandwidth, really, so that your concentration levels are just shot to pieces. You stuff that you would find quite easy to do, you can't concentrate. Your rumination, you sort of, stuff that you would normally not worry too much about, you really start sort of worrying about. Really irritable. I had a couple of moments where I had my kids, and you could feel it. You're just really on edge, and you explode at the littlest things. And at the time, you write it off. You say, well, I've got stuff going on. It's fine. And the other big thing is your physical condition as well. It was a bit crazy. Really bad skin. I was as old as I am. It was like I was a teenager again. With issues I had with my skin, my stomach. I had real issues with my stomach. I thought it was just because I worked, shift work and all the coffee I was drinking. But what was interesting is that, and that twist when you start thinking about stuff, the rumination, you feel that little twist in your gut. And key things would trigger it. You find yourself being triggered quite easily as well with stuff that you ordinarily wouldn't worry about. And the biggest thing is you're just not yourself. Your resilience levels are through the floor, so you don't have any capacity for taking on anything. And the thing is too, once everything happened though, and a massive sort of impending sense of doom as well. And I likened it to if you're on a shore, and there's a tsunami coming. The tidal waves coming in, and you're there, you're aware it's coming, you can't see it, but you know it's there. So you got this sort of this feeling at the back of your mind, and then once it hits, just devastates everything, spins you around, completely throws your world upside down. But then when the water recedes, you're left. Obviously, your world's in a complete chaos, but you don't have that feeling anymore. That's gone, and that's when you can start pulling yourself back together again. And for me though, like I say, the big thing for me is, if I'd known then what I know now, I could have put some quite effective interventions in place, and I wouldn't have got to the point where that tsunami hit and just wiped everything out.
So I'd like to go back to kind of like when you climb back up the mountain, like you just kind of talked about hitting the bottom of the valley. Like, what are some of the things that you did in first month or two that made a difference to claw your way out of that?
You know what? It was just a real realization, as a first responder for as long as I was. Whenever things went fucking wrong, I was the one that people were pushing the button and turning up. So I was the one that was turning up, looking the part at 2 o'clock in the morning when someone's life's in absolute pieces. So I was the one that that they wanted, and I had a moment where it was probably my darkest moment, and I was there, and I was just everything was spinning. I didn't know what to do. I had a week where I didn't sleep. I must have been getting by on about 2 hours sleep a night. I wasn't eating that week after my event. I was forcing myself to eat a bit of toast. I realised I'd gone for a day without eating, and then I just had this realisation that I just needed to stop, and that nobody was coming, and that the person that was going to save me was already there, and that I needed to grip this, and that was like a real settling of everything. I was like, right, the worst case scenario has happened. I'm off work now. Right, what do? What's the first thing I do right now? And then little steps and pulling myself back again. But that realization that nobody was coming, it was me that needed to sort myself out. I was the one that was,
yeah.
And that was like thunderbolt.
Struck you right there, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that there's a quote, I forget who it is, but I've seen it in YouTube a lot, where this gentleman's like, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody is. And I think you react two ways to that. One way is lonely. The other way is ownership, right? Like, no one's coming to save me. I need to fix my shit. Like, it's all on my shoulders. And I think that's freeing because you're in control at that standpoint. So when you're talking to the men here who might be in this shitstorm that they're in their life, like, what are some early steps that you help guide men through to climb their own way out of, just getting out of that, just okay state of life, just bleh, how do you help them move forward?
Okay, the big thing is just to get them to reconnect with who they are, and to find their strength again. Because the other point that I make with it, I had this conversation with another charity that works with ex-servicemen, ex-military in the UK here, and the big thing we want to make sure these guys understand is that this is you self-select in. These symptoms don't affect weak people. They don't affect this affects the strong. You've got to have a pretty decent strength of character to be able to sail past all the initial warning signs. Most people get to the first warning sign and tip over, give up, and they never get to the point where they're physically, having symptoms, or where they find themselves in a position that I found myself in, and the guys I work with find themselves in. So it's just giving them that sense of strength again, understanding that the reason they're here is because they're strong, and because they're strong, they can do this. They've got this.
I think it's important there because we grow up, our fathers basically, don't be a pussy, don't be a wuss, to emphasize that it comes from a person of strength that, being self-aware of being burned out, that you reaching a point beyond what you can handle by your own doing, it happens to strong people. I mean, you were a police officer, a rugby, two components there. You're a professional athlete, right? That
6'4", 250 pounds, I think, in your money.
Right? So, yeah. People look at you and like, holy cow, this guy looks like a freaking man.
One of the other roles I had was I was a riot police officer. I was with the PSU, we call it in the UK. So I was the one with the shields and the helmets on at the football matches here in the UK with all the guys playing up. So
all the crazies, the drunk people.
Yeah.
So I think it's poignant to say that it happens to strong people because you've persevered, you've gotten past what might knock people out of their knees, and gotten to a point where your body just physically can't take it anymore. So I think that's really important to say. So how do you continue forward with these guys that you coach and help them with those baby steps towards living an abundant and great life? I mean, what are the 12 steps you walk them through?
Like I say, it's a 12-week program I've got. So it really is sitting down the first couple of sessions and working out who it is they are. Because, there's so many guys, everyone's an individual. And some guys find some things really easy. And, and other guys struggle with some stuff. So it's just working out who they are and what they want to reconnect with. It may be that everything's fine at home and they're struggling at work and they want to sort of reconnect with that person they are at work with their confidence. And they're struggling that way. So it's finding out sort of, and we talk about sort of once you work out your why, the how becomes quite easy. So another big thing as well is obviously we need to have a little bit of a chat to the guys about ego, about why they're doing the things they're doing. Are they in the role they're doing because they need it to support the lifestyle that they think they should be living? Are they putting unrealistic expectations on themselves? What do they actually want to be happy? They've got all their buddies that sort of live the lives they do, but is that really your bag? Is that how you want to be living? And so we've really just got to drill down into you get to an age where we're not 18 anymore. We're own men. We understand what we need, what makes us tick, and it's about finding the confidence and to be able to live the life that you want to live. Not the life that you're not living for other people.
So I like that question of like, who are you? And I think especially as your identity changes. I mean, we've both gone through a divorce, and now we've both gone through career changes, and most of the men listening to have had that change to where all of a sudden how you labeled yourself in all social settings completely changes.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but for me, you tend to go to where you're strong, and that may be your fitness, it may be your job. I think most men it's probably their job. And they kind of numb themselves with just like one laning it, right? But that question of like, who are you? And I think for me, it was like, what are my values now? Like, I kind of had a lot of borrowed values in my life from either my parents or my ex-wife or, who I was kind of pretending to be to keep in that relationship. And that identity shift really shook me, and it sounds like you had a similar epiphany, different timeline, but do I have that right?
No, yeah, absolutely. And and it's exhausting trying to be something you're not. Trying to be something for everybody else. In that role that you're not comfortable in. You're in a work environment where they're not your people, and you're coming home and you haven't got anywhere where you can be authentic, where you can be yourself, and that's a big thing as well. That's exhausting. And we talk about the need to rest. I mean, we touched on earlier when we spoke, and the big thing with resilience and avoiding burnout, it's the idea around it's not eliminating stress, but it's managing your stress. Because ultimately stress is good. Anyone that's had any experience with working out or anything like understands that you need to be stressing your body in order for the gains. But you can't be stressing your body 24/7. You can't be going to the gym and having a 5-hour workout and then expecting you to be PBing in a month's time. You need to be resting. So the formula we use that we spoke about earlier is stress plus rest equals progress, and it's managing that rest that is the probably the big thing that people are missing. And if you're out there trying to be something that you're not resting, and if you're not able to switch off, it impacts, because if you're not able to come home and switch off and you can't be present with your family, then that's that sort of building. You're there, and so the stress at home builds, and you're at work, and you're not working well and it's all just a cumulative effect. And again, we talked a little bit earlier about shit boxes. So your shit box at home's getting full. You're not emptying that. The shit box at work's, you're neglecting your buddies. You're neglecting your extended family. And again, we talk about sort of signs and symptoms. Withdrawing socially and withdrawing from your family is a big indicator as well. If you're at home and you're on vacation with your family, or you've got a Sunday with your family and you're just not there. Your mind's elsewhere. It's a real thing to be thinking about as well.
I like that because I think that there's two things I like about the formula is there's always going to be stress. So we need to become more resilient and build tools to deal with that stress. And two, like the rest component, and I think I hear rest, but I hear sleep, but I almost hear like reset, to where like, how do you reset your life? How do you reset your mind? How do you empty that shit box, right? And start over again on a daily basis or a regular basis, because it's going to continue to fill up. And if you don't have a way to unburden yourself, you're just going to burn out, right? So what are some tips or strategies that you use to help men embrace that rest? Some techniques that you help them explore that part of the formula.
Okay, a big thing about it is changing things up. Another big part of when you're heading that way is your rumination. You start starts playing over in your brain. You're not able to sort of process stuff and get rid of it. It just stays there. And the problem is with rumination, it builds and builds and builds. And there's a lot of work going around it now around neuroplasticity, around pathways in your brain. So the more you're thinking about stuff, all you're doing is you're training your brain to do that. So when you're resting, your brain will always take the path of least resistance. That's why people like routine. That's why when you're driving, you don't have to think about it. When you're riding a bike, you don't have to think about it, because all those neural pathways have been sort of been made, and everything just happens by default, really. So when you're left alone with your thoughts, if you've been ruminating, the more you ruminate, the quicker you'll go there. And if you're not able to put that conscious block in there, you'll just carry on and carry on and carry on. So a big thing when I was working with the police, we used to go into a lot of people that were in crisis, and the first thing we'd ask them is, have you spoken to your doctor, or do you have a crisis team that you're in contact with? And usually what we got was they'd say, well, I called them and they just told me to go run a bath or go for a walk. What's that going to do? And the difficulty was, it hadn't been explained to them that what they were trying to say to people is you just need to change things up. At the moment, you get yourself in such a state that's ruminating. What they're saying is take yourself out of the environment and go somewhere different, which is why even just going out for a walk in the countryside, get some fresh air, is such an effective tool, because what it does, it just exposes you to new stimulation. So you're in new environments and you're having to take in different things. So your brain's not sort of taking the path of least resistance. It's now having to sort of look at different things now. So that's what I suggest. If you're finding yourself falling into patterns, so you're coming home and you're doing certain things, and things are sort of just change stuff up. If you come home and normally sort of sit down and maybe have a beer, don't do something different. Even if you change up what you're drinking, an orange juice or something fizzy, or make it a point of when you come home, you're going to be getting back in touch with your buddies. Get on your phone, send a few messages, have a few conversations, but explain to the people you're with, your loved ones, your family, that this is what you're doing. You're feeling a little bit sort of under the weather, and that we need to change things up a little bit. Meals, obviously when you're cooking, everybody has their go-to meals. Change that up. Go online, find some new recipes, find some new stuff. And it's just about getting your brain sort of re-engaged with different things and taking them away from the comfortable.
Yeah, it's like having that intentional pattern interrupt, to where it's like, okay, well, I'm feeling myself spinning, or I feel overburdened or overstressed or overwhelmed or anxiety, whatever you want to label it, it all kind of feels the same, right? But having that, at least allowing that to trigger a sequence in your mind of like, okay, what mix up could I do here? Maybe it is go outside. Maybe it's jump down and do 10 push-ups. Maybe it's I do cold therapy, so I have an ice barrel that I jump in when shit
Yeah,
hits the fan.
that's not for everyone, Andrew. I mean, but
It's
yeah,
not for
no,
me either, but I do it anyway, Cold showers, all that stuff, to where for me it is that reset component. And by forcing myself in that circumstance, it resets my mind. And because I have to focus on that one thing of just like, this is freaking cold and I need to breathe my way through it and fight my own mind of like, hey, you want to get out? It's time to get out. It's time to get out. And it's like, no, not time yet. I'm in control, not my body, right? So I think that those little practicing moments of I'm in control. Like my feelings, my emotions are a direct result of the story I'm telling myself. So if I'm in that ice bath, it's like, it's too cold for me, then I'm getting out. But if it's like, no, I got this, this is the exercise. This is the practice to where this is the 20 burpees, that I know I have to do to get me stronger, or the 8 reps on the bench press to strengthen that muscle. And I think it's kind of cool to compare it to that, because we get that, everyone, I assume, have lifted weights at some point in their life, and you realize that it's going to suck at some point, but you need to put the reps in. So having these reps or the intentional moments to reset and as a toolkit to move through these moments, it's important, right?
Yeah, and just understanding that these feelings are normal, and we talk about sort of getting the pause in there as well, and just being able to sort of take a step back and look at them for what they are. They're normal feelings, and it's about just get. And we talk about the power of the pause. When you, rather than reacting to something. So a lot of the time you become quite irritable, and you lash out and you sort of say things you don't mean to say. But it's just being able to take that step back and understanding that this isn't you, and that this is what's going on. Take it back, and almost take a third person sort of view of it. If you had a buddy stood in front of you, explaining to you exactly what you're feeling, what would you be telling them? You'd be saying, this is not you. And another big theme we talk about is that you are not a reliable witness. You're your own worst critic. So
right.
And stuff, so you're not a reliable witness. So you can't be. You can't trust what you're telling about yourself, and you can't be trusting what you're telling about, the stuff you're ruminating about. And it's just understanding that, and letting the feelings sort of wash over you. Sort of not trying to fight them, not being that stoic. Stood there. They talk about resilience isn't about being the rock and having everything just smashing into you and not feeling it, because that's nuts. We're human. We feel things.
Right.
We get upset by stuff, but it's just being able to bend with it and sort of understand that sort of being knocked over a little bit by it. Run with it, roll with the punch, but make sure you can spring back up again. If you just stand there and take the punches, you're going down. You're going to be getting counted out, aren't you? But if you're able to roll with them a little bit and sort of then you'll still be standing at the end of it. You'll be a little bit battered and bruised, but you're still stood there.
Right? Yeah. It reminds me of a quote by like Bruce Lee where he's like, be water and not the mountain, because the water eats away at the mountain. It's fluid, it's flexible. So he's like, I want to be water. And that's not the exact quote, but that's my interpretation of it,
No, that's how I imagine he would have said it as well. So I'm with you. It's almost like he was in the room with us then, Andrew.
Exactly. Yeah, Bruce Lee. That guy's a beast. I think that. So, where did you come up with the assured man? Because assured is not necessarily a term I use a ton. So I'm kind of curious on like, how would you describe, what are the characteristics of the after state of a man that you work with? Kind of, we've talked a lot about like the before state of somebody who's been through the ringer. What is the assured man to you? What is the after state of after they put the work in and have these tools that they've applied in their life at the, whether it be at the end of the 12 weeks or going forward? What does that look like to you?
The name came from, I was just sort of spinning a few names with a mate of mine. We were sitting down talking about stuff, and he sort of said, and exactly what you just said. How do you see once someone's come to you and we come out after the 12 weeks, where do you? I said, well, I'd like them to have just a real inner calm, sort of inner confidence, sound quite assured. And he went, assured. He said, I like that. And we thought, we sort of rubbed it over. I passed around a couple of other guys, and a few guys, it sounds a bit, but a couple of mates come back to me and said, no, actually, it's good. It's different. And like I say, so calm, confident, but an inner calm and an inner confidence. I'm not talking, I'm not going to sort of turn you into some sort of gym rat that's in there, sort of out there, sort of banging the reps out and throwing the big tin around in the lifting area in the gym, sort of being all that. But just someone that's got it. We're an age now where we're past all that nonsense, and we're confident. We've got that inner peace, inner confidence, inner strength. We're assured.
I like it. I mean, I think it's like another way to say confident. You use that word quite a bit, and it's something that it's pretty easy to throw around. That like hey, he's so confident, and being genuinely confident, and in yourself and in your own choices. And where do you think that self-confidence comes from for yourself, or for the men you've seen that are very assured and confident themselves? Like, what is the foundation of that, and how does a man go from not confident to that? From what you've seen.
Confidence is best way to describe confidence. It's not your relationship with success; it's your relationship with failure. And when you've been, you can sit there and have all the book learning you like, but Mike Tyson talks about it quite succinctly, doesn't he? Every man's got a plan until you punch in the face, and then you're going there. But it's understanding, and guys that have been punched in the face and understand what my nose is not as straight as when I came into that. So I'm no stranger to knocks to the face myself. But so you sort of you understand that failure isn't fatal. We get knocks, we come back, but on the flip side of it, success isn't permanent either. So it's understanding that life's sort of it's ups and downs, and it's rolling with it, and that they're all just different shades of the same colour. And when you understand that, then your confidence comes. That when stuff doesn't quite go right, or things tip over, it's not the end of the world. You are going to get back from it, and most of us if you get to an age, our age, where and you haven't had anything go wrong, or you've not had any adversity, or you've not come up against it, then you've won the life lottery, really. So
yeah, I've actually never been punched in the face, which is kind of funny, but it speaks to I'm more like the peacekeeper was growing up. My little brother was the Spitfire. He had the little man's disease, so but I'm 6'5", 240, so it's probably more out of just like, if I punch him, he's probably going to punch me back. I played football, but you got the helmet on, so you're not going to get punched in the face there. But
no helmets in rugby. So you
no helmets in rugby.
No helmets in rugby. No.
My dad played rugby in college, and he told me stories. He messed up his knee pretty bad, so I didn't ever venture into that world. But I've watched it, and man, it looks intense. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. So being a police officer and kind of walking into crises and that kind of stuff, I mean, I can't even imagine seeing people in possibly the worst moment of their life every single day at work or every single week, right? Like, how did you build up a tolerance for that? I mean, what did you do with that emotion when you left work?
That was a problem. I didn't, So.
Oh, okay.
And that's part of it. You think you're okay with it, and you go away, you deal with stuff. But they always, the big thing we talk about in the police is you can go to as many different instances as you like, but it's the ones that sort of hit with, if you're at a certain stage of your life, it's when you're dealing with people at that stage of your life that's when they hit. Or if you're dealing with families and there's children of similar age to your own children, that's when it hits. And it's just understanding. It's also just about knowing when to put your hand up and say, look, I need some time. The last couple of shifts were pretty rough. We had the area I policed. We had some particular features there that were quite popular for people that were feeling a little bit despondent. So I spent a lot of time on motorway bridges, railway bridges, talking to guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so you have these conversations, and you have these, and ironically, having gone through it myself, probably the most powerful thing I could do with guys, because the police get called. You could be having someone fresh out of college turning up, or you could be having some sort of old grey beard like myself sort of rolling up that's sort of got a few more rounds under his belt. And the most powerful thing I had with the guys was just being straight with them and saying to them, look, I was in your shoes 12 months ago. I know exactly I know exactly where you are, fella. And all I can say is I'm still here. 12 months later. It will get better. You are at rock bottom now, and it will get better. I'm saying I won't feel it now, and I won't feel it tomorrow. Maybe in a month's time it won't, but it will get better. And sometimes that was just that switch they needed. That's what they needed to hear.
I mean, that speaks a lot to our mission here at Resisting Beta and our mission to cut the male suicide rate in half by 2032. Because I think most of the men that hit that phase in life and decide to end their life, it's that hopelessness. It's that feeling alone. I remember a story I heard on the Ed My That podcast where I forget his name. Hopefully we can get him on the podcast sometime soon. But he talked about how his story on jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, I think it was. And he went through that episode all day just waiting for somebody to ask him, hey, are you okay? I mean, he'd be sitting in the back of the bus crying, sobbing. No one said anything. He walked past people, but just that cloud over his head. No one said anything, So I just related really well to that, man, of like that. I think there's that quote where most people live lives of just silent desperation, where they just lone wolf the hell out of it. And they just don't have someone in their life that they feel safe with, of like, you know what? I'm not okay. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. That lack of compassion that many men have of they don't feel compassion, or they don't feel like they're in a safe space where they can tell a man that, hey, I'm not okay. And here's why. Because we grow up, I know in the States, we grow up in sports, and most male friends, they just give you shit all the time. And they make fun of you, and they wait for you to screw up so they can rub your nose in it. And that makes a huge impact. I mean, it made a huge impact on me and my ability to have male friends. So I think it's just really important to share that side of your story of, I've been there, man. I hit rock bottom, and I didn't give up, and neither should you, because there's a path out of it, and I'm living proof. So I just appreciate that.
And what you're saying, Andrew, people just want to be heard. They just want to be heard. And I think the big difference between men and women is they talk about, when you speak about your issues with a woman, they'll give you sympathy. Women do sympathy, men do solutions.
Right.
So So, and sometimes you just need to be heard. You're not looking to, for anyone to give you the magic bullet or that blue pill that's going to make everything okay. Sometimes just because a lot of the times you're there and let's say you're stewing over stuff and you're going over and over and over and over, and sometimes just blurting that to someone, that's enough.
Right.
Just having that coming out there, that verbal diarrhea of just sort of everything. Just be able just to let it all go and sort of have someone listen to you and and not judge you, not sort of not try and say, right, what you want to be doing is you want to be doing this, and that, just listen and understand and go, yeah, mate, I get it. It's shit. But and just give them that space, just to offload. Because we all know, the women in our lives have all got their, they've all got their BFFs, and they'll sit there and and their phones are going 24/7, and there's voice notes going back and forward. Fucking they know everybody, everything about sort of each other's lives. Whereas we keep things a bit closer, don't we?
Yeah, it's funny. You come back from a guy's weekend and your partner will ask you like, "Oh, how are they?" Or "How's their family?" Or "How's this?" And you're like, "I don't know. We didn't talk about that." Yeah, man. But I think just speaks to the importance of having these conversations and demonstrating and leading these conversations of like, it's okay to be strong. I mean, you're still strong and also need help too. Strength is not lone wolf. Strength is linking arms with another man and saying, "Hey, we got this together."
No, lone wolves tend to die alone in the snow, don't they? Because they can't hunt.
Yeah, for sure.
Every lone wolf's out there looking for their pack, aren't they? They're not out there doing it by themselves. That's what lone wolf is all about. They're looking for their pack.
Mm-hmm. You had said something that triggered a thought on a conversation I have with my girlfriend pretty often, to where I'll just be needing to vent, and she's like, I have to preface the conversation to like, "Hey, I just need you to listen, right? I don't want you to solve this problem," because she likes to be a problem solver, and I just need to vent. So please don't solve the problem. After venting, I probably know the answer to the problem anyway. So having that question in my arsenal of, are you looking for me to help solve this problem, or are you just looking to vent? And it's one of the better things I've added to my life and having these kind of conversations. So something that if you want to add that to your arsenal, it's helped me a ton, So, I mean, I think we're rounding out the episode here. So I'm kind of curious. There's a couple questions that I ask each man on here on our podcast. One of them is, what does it mean to be a man for you, Zane?
It's just about owning my space, owning who I am, being unapologetically who I am. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy what I don't enjoy. What I enjoy. I don't enjoy what I don't enjoy, and it's not trying to live my life for anybody else. And ironically, by being yourself and owning your strength, I can be the father I need to be for my children, and I can be the partner I am for my for my girlfriend that she needs, because she's still in the emergency services. She's a paramedic, so she's still out there up against it with everything that's going on. So and just you find your inner strength, and I think that's what it is.
I love that, and that takes practice, because demonstrating your authentic self, and especially if you've been being a people pleaser like I was in my marriage. And it's kind of funny, like when we were about 10 years into my marriage, my ex-wife told me, "You know what? I wish you were drunk more. I like you better when you were drunk." And now I've analyzed that statement, and it's really spoken to me, to where, because that's basically how, so I listened to this book called David D'Angelo, Double Your Dating, when I was like 20 years old. And he talks about kind of inventing this kind of cocky persona that is witty and, a little bit different to pick up women. And when I was in college, because when I was in high school, I didn't get my first kiss until I think I was 18, and she kissed me. And she was like a freshman, and she just, shoved her tongue down my throat, and I was like, whoa, and that was awesome. But and then I get into college, it's like, I got to figure this shit out. So I invented this persona and he would come out when I was drunk, because I needed him to talk to girls and get girls. And it was funny that she said that to her. It's like, oh, so you want me to be that persona that I invented to to date you. But like that's not me. Like that's not who I am. That was somebody I acted that way because it was the only way only toolbox I had of like trying to talk to women and get dates and hopefully eventually take them home, depending on the weekend and circumstances and all that stuff. So
it's exhausting, isn't it?
It was, man. I mean, that was half my marriage, was just being exhausted of like, she didn't love me for who I am. And she kept trying to change. She's like, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur, demonstrated being an entrepreneur since I was like 10 years old. And she didn't like that about me. She wanted me just to be an employee and punch the clock and just be okay with it because that gave her security. And I tried, over and over and over again, but we'd have this reciprocal fight around that. And I was miserable because I wasn't being who I was, because I wasn't in a safe space where I could be the man that I am so proud of who I am with her. So when you talk about that being authentic, it means so much to me and my journey over the last 3-4 years of discovering who that authentic me is, and then just being comfortable showing it to people and like feeling love. And I can show this to men and get friendship. I can show this to my girlfriend and she loves me for it, right? Versus trying to be a chameleon and fit in with everybody.
Yeah, and also being yourself and not people not liking it and being comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Not walking in and wanting everyone to like you and wanting everyone to sort of be your friend. I'm quite comfortable with again, being a police officer, you get very comfortable with people not liking you. You get very so
true.
Yeah, so but again, being yourself, and if you're not if you're not everyone's cup of tea, I don't want you to stay over the States if you're not everyone's cup of coffee or whatever it is. Cup of coke or whatever it is over there, but if you're not everyone's cup of tea, then that's fine, and you're not putting any energy into that, and it's not bothering you because you find your tribe. I think the older you get, the more you understand who you are and who your people are, and it's about finding your people as well. And what it also means is you go through these journeys and you leave people behind. When you reinvent yourself, because I mean, just I know we're running out of time now, Andrew, but we also talk about post-traumatic growth. Because once you've been through stuff some people go through, a real common theme that people don't understand about is post-traumatic growth. And I think a simple way of describing it is you just don't put up with bullshit anymore. You've got a lot, your tolerance is a lot lower, and you understand what works for you. And all of a sudden, and for me, the way I described it was like going from everything being all blurry to everything going into HD, being really short-sighted, putting a pair of glasses on, everything all of a sudden was clear and made sense, and stuff just made sense. So there's that side of it as well that people don't sort of talk about enough.
Yeah, man, I feel that because I think post-divorce, the relationship with my family, the relationship with some friends, like I just went through just like a growth spurt personally, and I don't relate as well. And I also really defined my own values, which was a big shift. And it was a lot of my values are different than my family. So as that continued to evolve, it kind of created not as much closeness as we had before, and what felt like closeness. But looking back, it was mainly just like surface conversation towards like, how's work? Oh, this sports team, or this weather is great, but it wasn't a whole lot of like
real
depth.
Connections. Yeah.
And I've gotten a lot better at seeking that out and connecting at that level with a lot of the male friendships that I've been able to develop post divorce, and prioritizing that in my life versus just relying on my ex-wife to be my best friend, my wife, my lover, all that stuff. So it's been a huge development in my life.
I mean, and never underestimate the power of change as well. And that's that was a real common thing. That's a real common thing with guys. Sort of when stuff just your life gets you hit the wall and get sent off in a different direction. It's really unsettling, and even for guys that where it's been expected, guys that especially I put back to it, but guys that come out of the military, because most guys are done with the military by the time they're in their late 30s. They've got another whole life ahead of them, and just that transition from their identity was so wrapped up in their uniform and their rank and their role, being spat back out into civvy life. Then it's a really good analogy. Sort of just even though it was all planned for, they knew it was coming, and the rest of it, just that unsettling sort of nature of change. Humans, we like, we know what we like, and we like what we know, and just having that come along, and it's just being able to understand and deal with it.
I mean, embracing change and almost using it to grease the wheels for propelling you forward, right? I like that. Like it's an accelerator towards you moving towards the best version of yourself, and leading into it and allowing it to be like, where is this change gonna fuel my next adventure or my next journey, or who I'll become post this change, and kind of having that mindset to use it as a rubber band to kind of launch you forward is exciting. So,
and it's like the proverbial punch in the face. No one knows, you can prepare for it, it's coming, but until you're actually sort of in the ring getting it, you don't know how you're going to react to it. Some people thrive on it. The guys that that do really well with in the combat sports, they quite enjoy getting punched in the face. But it's not for everyone.
Must.
Well, they do. Some of them, you see them there, and they're clearly right. They're in their element. And it's like ice cold bars. Jumping in a an ice bath. It's not for everyone, but some people love it. So it's about,
that's true.
You know it's coming. It's going to be horrible, but you feel it. You feel your emotion. You feel it. You control it. You own it. And you push through it.
For sure. So I'd like you to put your professorial hat on as we are rounding out this episode and give the men a homework assignment, one thing they can do every single day for the next 7 days where they can get some momentum, some baby steps, something simple that can help them move from where they're at to where they want to go. What would there be their homework for the next 7 days?
Right, something I've thought about a little while ago, actually, and I would say do a thought audit. When you find yourself in those quiet times on your commute home, when you're normally left alone with your thoughts, just take a step back and see where your thoughts are taking you, and to start to feel them and understand. And so, why am I going here? Are these the same things I've been ruminating over? How long have I been ruminating over these thoughts? Am I still pissed off with the boss? Am I still pissed off with the ex? Am I still replaying those thoughts over and over and over? And if you've been doing it for more than a month, it's time to give it up. It's time to start it's time to take ownership of those thoughts, because all they're doing is they're fucking keeping you stuck in the moment. You're not moving on. Yeah. So a thought audit. Once a day, sit down and think back on the times when you were alone with your thoughts, and where did your thoughts take you. And if you're not happy with it, and those thoughts aren't serving your purpose, aren't serving you, then you need to start addressing them.
I like that. So we've covered a lot of ground here. If the men want to connect with you and ask some more questions, where's the best place for them to reach out? theassuredman.com. It's there. The website should be up by the end of the week. But there's a link there with my email, and it's Zane at theassuredman.com. So if anyone wants to speak to me, there's no pressure at all. I'm more than happy just to sit down and go over stuff with guys. There's no problem at all with that. There's a link there for my Calendly. So Zoom calls, I'm more than happy to jump on and just run over stuff with guys. Cool. Well, Zane, I really appreciate you being here. I know that I got a lot of value out of this conversation. Your story is phenomenal, and your mission. I love The Assured Man. I just want to honor you for taking the steps that you have from hitting that rock bottom moment and moving towards the man that you're becoming, because I'm excited to see where this journey takes not only you, but the men that you impact. So I just want to honor you for the level of investment, the level of commitment, and leaning into that fear of change that it's not easy to go through. So I just appreciate you so much.
Hey Andrew, and thanks for the time. And and again with your project, what you're looking to do, your 10-year project it's commendable, and it's something if I wholeheartedly sort of support and commend you for what you're doing as well, Andrew. So
awesome, thanks, man. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Resisting Beta podcast. Here's where I need your help. I'd love for you to give us a review on your favorite podcast player. Also, follow us on TikTok and Instagram and share this message out to a man that needs to hear it, because that's how we impact this world. Thank you very much. Make it a great day, men.